Something really dangerous just happened, and almost nobody is talking about it. The Department of Justice just filed paperwork in a lawsuit that has nothing to do with them. They weren't sued, they weren't asked to show up. But they did anyway. And what they said in that filing should concern every single person who cares about their rights. This isn't about one trigger or one accessory. This is about a brand new playbook for taking away your rights without ever passing a single law. Let me explain exactly what's happening, why it matters, and what comes next. So here's the setup. There are two companies that make forced reset triggers. You've probably heard of them. One is called Rare Breed. The other is a competitor. These triggers are legal. They fire 1 round per trigger pull. That makes them semi-automatic. Congress never banned them. The ATF tried to say they were machine guns, but that argument fell apart in court. The Supreme Court already shut down similar tricks when they ruled on bump stocks in a case called Cargill. The court said very clearly that the ATF cannot just rewrite definitions to ban things they don't like. If something is legal under the law, as written, then it stays legal unless Congress changes the law. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the system. But the DOJ doesn't care. They found a different way. Rare Breed sued their competitor over a patent. This is a private lawsuit. It's about intellectual property. It has nothing to do with criminal law or gun regulations. But then the DOJ stepped in. They filed what's called a Statement of Interest. That's a document where the government tells the court what they think should happen, even though they're not part of the case. And in that document, the DOJ made their goal crystal clear. They said they want to limit the sale and distribution of forced reset triggers. Not because they're illegal, not because Congress banned them, but because the DOJ has decided on their own that they don't want people to have them. So they're backing Rare Breed in this patent fight. If Rare Breed wins and shuts down all the competitors, then there's only one company left. And that one company can charge whatever they want, or stop selling entirely. Either way, access disappears. No law was passed, no vote was taken, the product just vanishes. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but this is just about one trigger. Why does it matter? Because this is a test. This is the DOJ trying out a brand new strategy. If it works here, they'll use it everywhere. Think about it. Almost every part you can buy for a firearm is patented. Magazines, optics, grips, stocks, muzzle devices, even certain types of ammunition. If the DOJ can step into patent lawsuits and help one company crush all the others, they can quietly regulate the entire industry without Congress ever getting involved. They don't need to pass a law. They don't need to win a Supreme Court case. They just need to control the market. And they're doing it right now in a courtroom most people will never hear about. Let's talk about why this is completely illegal. The Supreme Court already set the standard. It's called the Bruen decision. It says that any gun law has to be consistent with the text of the Second Amendment and the history of gun regulation in America. You can't just say something is dangerous and ban it. You have to show that there's a long tradition of regulating that specific thing. The DOJ hasn't done that. They can't because forced reset triggers didn't exist 200 years ago. And even if they tried, it wouldn't matter because these triggers are semi-automatic. One pull, one shot. That's completely legal. The Supreme Court already ruled on this kind of thing in the Cargill case. The ATF tried to say bump stocks were machine guns. The court said, no, a machine gun fires multiple rounds with one trigger pull. Bump stocks don't. Neither do forced reset triggers. The law is clear, but the DOJ is ignoring it. They're not trying to win in court. They're trying to win by making the court irrelevant. Now here's where it gets even worse. This whole thing is happening in silence. There's no press conference, no announcement, no debate, just a legal filing that most people will never read. And that's the point. If they tried to pass a law banning forced reset triggers, there would be massive pushback. Congress would get flooded with calls. Gun rights groups would file lawsuits. The media would cover it. But this way, it happens quietly. The DOJ supports a patent lawsuit, a competitor gets shut down, products disappear from the market, and by the time people notice, it's already done. That's not how a free country is supposed to work. Laws are supposed to be public. They're supposed to be debated. You're supposed to have a say. But this strategy cuts you out completely. It's regulation without legislation. It's control without accountability. If you're still watching, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. This story isn't getting the attention it deserves, and the only way people find out is if we spread the word. The algorithm won't do it for us. So let's make sure this message gets out there. Let's talk about what happens next. If the DOJ succeeds here, this becomes the blueprint. They'll do it with magazines next. There are tons of patent disputes in the magazine industry. The DOJ could step in, back one side, and suddenly high-capacity magazines become impossible to find. Not because they're illegal, but because the only company allowed to make them stops selling them. Then they'll do it with optics. Red dots, scopes, night vision, all patented, all vulnerable. Then pistol braces, then ammo, then anything else they decide they don't like. And here's the scariest part. This strategy works on everything, not just guns. If the government can manipulate patent law to control access to legal products, they can do it with anything. Think about free speech. What if they did this to printing companies or software developers or social media platforms? The principle is the same. Use the courts to crush competition, limit access, and regulate without legislating. It's a complete end run around the Constitution. Now, some people are going to say, come on, you're being paranoid. The DOJ isn't trying to take away your guns. They're just involved in a patent case. But that's exactly what they want you to think. They're counting on people not paying attention. They're counting on this flying under the radar. But their own words give them away. They said it themselves in the filing. They want to limit access to these triggers, not regulate them, not enforce existing law. Limit them. That's a policy goal. That's gun control. And they're doing it without Congress, without a vote, and without any regard for what the Supreme Court has already said. If that doesn't bother you, it should. Because today it's a trigger. Tomorrow it's something you care about. And by the time you notice, it'll be too late to stop it. Here's what you need to understand. The Second Amendment doesn't just protect guns. It protects your right to keep and bear arms. That includes accessories. It includes parts. It includes anything you need to actually exercise that right. If the government can take away your access to legal products without passing a law, then the Second Amendment means nothing. It's just words on paper. And that's the whole point of this strategy. They can't ban guns outright. The courts won't let them. So they're going after everything around guns. They'll make it harder to buy, harder to build, harder to customize, harder to train, harder to defend yourself. And they'll do it all through paperwork and lawsuits and bureaucratic tricks that most people will never see coming. That's why this matters. That's why you need to pay attention. Let me give you the bigger picture. This isn't just happening with guns. It's a pattern. Look at what they did with pistol braces. The ATF suddenly decided that millions of legal braces were actually illegal stocks. No law changed. They just changed their interpretation. It took years of lawsuits to push back. Look at what they're doing with homemade firearms. They decided that unfinished chunks of metal are actually guns, even though they can't fire and aren't functional. Again, no law passed, just a regulation. Look at what they tried to do with bump stocks. They redefined the term machine gun to include something that clearly wasn't. The Supreme Court stopped them, but only after years of fighting. Now they're doing it again with forced reset triggers. But this time, they learned their lesson. They're not using the ATF. They're using the courts. They're using patents. They're using strategies that are harder to fight because they don't look like gun control. But that's exactly what they are. So what do? First, stay informed. Videos like this one are how you find out what's really happening. The mainstream media won't cover this. They either don't understand it or they don't care. So you have to seek out the information yourself. Second, spread the word. Talk to your friends. Share this video. Post about it. The only way this strategy fails is if enough people know about it and push back. Third, support the legal fights. There are organizations right now fighting these battles in court. They need funding. They need attention. They need you to show up. Fourth, contact your representatives. Even though this is happening outside of Congress, Congress still has power. They can hold hearings. They can defund agencies. They can pass laws that stop this kind of abuse. But they won't do it unless you make them. So call, email, show up at town halls, make noise. And fifth, don't give up. They're counting on you getting tired. They're counting on you thinking it's not worth the fight. Prove them wrong. Here's the reality. Rights are not automatically protected. The Constitution is just a piece of paper unless people are willing to defend it. And the biggest threats don't come from armies or invasions. They come from slow, quiet erosions that happen when nobody's watching. That's what this is. A quiet attack on your rights, hidden in legal filings and patent disputes, designed to slip past you before you notice. But now you know. Now you've seen the strategy. And now you have a choice. You can ignore it and hope it goes away. Or you can stand up and fight back. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to keep making videos like this. I'm going to keep shining a light on these tactics. I'm going to keep telling the truth, no matter how many people try to bury it. And I hope you'll join me. If this video opened your eyes, make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've heard about this before. Let me know if you're as angry as I am, because we're not alone. There are millions of people who care about freedom. And when we stand together, we're unstoppable. So let's make some noise. This isn't just about guns. It's about power. It's about who gets to make the rules. It's about whether we live in a country where the government follows the law or a country where the government is the law. Right now, they're testing how much they can get away with. They're pushing boundaries. They're seeing if anyone will notice. Well, we noticed, and we're not going to let it slide. This is the line. This is where we push back. Not with violence, not with chaos, but with truth, with attention, and with relentless pressure on the people who think they can get away with this. They're wrong. And we're going to prove it. The DOJ's filing is public. You can read it yourself, look up the case, see what they said. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. And when you see it with your own eyes, you'll understand why this is such a big deal. This isn't conspiracy. This isn't exaggeration. This is exactly what's happening, in black and white, in their own words. They want to limit your access to legal products. They're using the courts to do it, and they're hoping you won't notice until it's too late. But it's not too late. Not yet. We still have time. We still have options. We still have a voice, so use it. In the end, this is about whether we're going to be a free people or subjects, whether we're going to have rights or privileges, whether we're going to live under the Constitution or under the whims of bureaucrats who think they know better. I know where I stand. I stand with the Constitution. I stand with the Second Amendment. And I stand with anyone who refuses to let their rights be taken without a fight. If you feel the same way, then let's do this together. Let's hold the line. Let's spread the word. And let's make sure that the next time the DOJ tries something like this, they know we're watching. Because when the people are awake, the government can't get away with anything. And it's time we wake up. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay free.